Welcome to Why We Draw. I'm Rob Culbertson. I'm here again with Garrett Burtner.
Hey, Rob.
And John Weir.
Peace, brother.
Guys, I'm really excited to share the conversation we had today with Lucas Elliott. Lucas is a professional illustrator. He's done a lot of graphic novels. He's also an educator and just really, really inspiring to talk to. I think he's great at kind of sharing his passion.
He's a badass.
He is amazing. He's got an incredible beard. He's got a huge radio voice.
He's
inspiring.
He's a triple threat.
He's a triple threat. Yeah, it's. I was just very impressed by his honesty.
Yeah,
and his kind of. You can just see people who are educators, mentors.
There's a passion for sharing there.
Absolutely.
And kind of bringing everybody into the tent, right?
Yeah. And this is the part of the exciting part of the intro to this particular talk is trying to frame up what you're going to be talking, what you're going to be hearing, what we're going to be sharing. And that's exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he was great talking about kind of his journey and the tools that he uses. So we're excited to share it with you. You can check Lucas out at Lucas Elliott Art. And without further ado, let's get into it. Here's the interview with Lucas Elliott.
We have a special guest today, professional illustrator Lucas Elliott. Lucas is the co-creator of Moose, the graphic novel, and the creator of Battlestar and many other awesome projects. Welcome, Lucas.
Thank you for having me.
And Lucas, why do you draw?
Well, a long, long time ago, in a galaxy far, far, no, I'm kidding. I draw because I feel compelled to. It's not that I don't want to. It's where my heart lies. As the sappiest way I can put it, yes. But why I draw is storytelling. When I was a kid, I was given my first comic books by my grandmother. And it was everything from like DuckTales to X-Men and Spider-Man. Like, she really had no idea about what any of these stories were about, but she's like, these look cool. Here you go. Have fun. And yeah, I was like, cool. All right. And then I loved watching cartoons as a kid, and I wanted to recreate the characters. My cousin and I would always sit there and play and draw and just develop these little worlds and like how these characters interacted, and really kind of got into the idea of like who they were as characters, and we just kept going with it. And yeah, so I just felt compelled to really start writing my own stories and drawing my own stories and taking my characters and other characters and having them interact. But I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go with things until I went to Disney World back when I was in high school, and I got to watch a few animators. This is when they still had their animation studio in Florida. And I got to watch them working on a movie. And I always think that it's Mulan. I don't actually remember exactly what movie it was, but to be able to sit there and watch them just traditionally hand draw, flip through pages and working on stuff, I was like, you can do this as a job? What? I don't know why that didn't correlate until I just saw them doing that. And then
Because you grew up in Alaska, that's why.
Yes, that's very much. Well, and I grew up in North Pole, so, very out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so we got back, and we got on my parents' compact computer, jumped onto AOL, and
We're dating him right now.
I'm just
Love it, baby.
I got to throw that.
Love
out there.
it.
And I downloaded an application for Disney to like be a visual development artist or whatever it was called at that time. And I was like, okay, these are the steps that I need. This is what I want to do. So I can tell these same stories. So I can be part of the story, creating these stories. And I just kept going with it ever since. And then, I finally got down to California, realized it was too hot, too peoply. So, yeah, Alaska is where I'd be.
Peoply. Love it.
You talk about being compelled to draw. Like, what is it that compels you? Is it a need for expression or to explore stories in your head?
I think it's, more the second one. I've always been enjoying comics, but I also really got big into painting when I was in college. And so how are you able to take an entire story and sum it up into one particular poster or one particular image? And so one of the things I like to do with a lot of my work is I like to throw in like little Easter eggs and little visual narratives that aren't just the primary narrative. So even if it's a story that I don't develop into a full-on graphic novel, picture book, or anything else, people can look at my work again and again and go, oh, I didn't notice that before. That's really cool. And it gives layers of depth depending on how you want to interpret the story.
You think about, like, you talk about cartoonists and comics, and I think about like Gary Larson in The Far Side, and how much that he could put into one panel, right? And then just take off in your head, and you would fill in all the gaps, the story, the awkwardness, the joke, all those bits and pieces. One panel.
Yeah, I like I feel like the text, less is more sometimes with the text, at least for me with comic books and graphic storytelling. I do read quite a bit of graphic novelage, and I find that I have to force myself to switch off the reading part and switch on the drawing experience part. Look back at the page, because I'll just zip through the page, and then I think, damn, these guys spent who knows how many hours drawing this page. I better, spend a little time on that.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually was having coffee with a friend of mine recently. We were talking about that because our styles are very vastly different. He's much more detail oriented in adding textures and hatching and strokes, whereas a lot of my work tends to be more geared towards colors and shapes. And it also kind of depends on who our age ranges are. His work tends to be more for adults and like high schoolers and up. My work tends to be a bit more for kids or kids at heart. And so it just kind of depends on like how much detail and work that you want to put into it. But one of the things I do with comics, like whether it's a graphic novel, a floppy, or anything else, is I tend to read them like 2 or 3 times for that exact same reason. I'll read it for the words first, then I'll read it for the art second, and then I'll read it for both and find the correlation between them. I mean, it's not all going to be at the same time. I'm not going to sit there for 3 hours and go, okay, hour 1 is this one. But, it's...
For me, the graphic artist is a double reading, right? It's a little bit of text, a lot of graphics. I'm big on Arkham Asylum. That whole genre was so beautiful. Very few text images, all just graphics, and appreciate the way that you can tell a story quickly through graphics.
Well, so much of the depth in the story in that Arkham Asylum graphic novel too was told through the art. That it is a more immersive experience. And I don't know about you guys, but like, it's when the writing and the art are at the same level, right? When they work together, that's the best. That's the most immersive experience, because there have definitely been like writers that I like, for instance, but if they're not working with an artist or an artist I don't care for in particular, then it's like, I don't know if I can power through that.
Yeah, I think that there's a balance for sure. Like if you get both that are equally great, fantastic. But if you're somebody who is more for the writing than the art, you're going to not care about it as much. But if you're somebody that's there for more for the art than the writing, the writing story will be okay, but the artwork is what can carry the project. And I think that it just kind of depends on what you're hoping to get out of that particular piece. Because I've definitely read all different versions, and I've been pleasantly surprised by stories where the artwork is kind of lacking, but the story just really kind of helps to carry it overall.
So tell me who's someone you look to for a mentorship, someone that inspired you to do what you're doing?
Oh, goodness. That's a good question. There's a few, and I think it kind of depends on where I was at in my career and where I'm still at in my career. Because when I was younger, I was definitely trying to get more into like the Marvel DC stuff. Yeah, that was definitely not me. But at the same time, I had artists like Humberto Ramos and Francisco Herrera who were working on like Amazing Spider-Man and X-Men and or Wolverine and other stories. I really love the expressiveness of like Scotty Young, because he takes these characters that are just wildly exaggerated, and which is something I try to evoke in my own work. But he wasn't strictly just like Marvel and DC. He was also doing their interpretation of The Wizard of Oz. And he has since gone on to do other stuff like I Hate Fairyland. and it's just really goofy stuff. That's where most of my work lives. It's like, it's really goofy. It's not serious, you know, and I want everybody to kind of get a good smile out of it. And so I feel like his stuff is definitely more mature than my work. But at the same time, you know, it's really interesting to see how he creates work for all ages. And he creates stories that are just kind of nonsensical, but are also just very much story driven.
Lucas, is there a line for you in terms of detail where sometimes cartooning in a more simplistic style can actually convey more emotion because it puts more of that on the reader to kind of interpret what's being shown, what's being felt, where the story is going? And you see sometimes like a very detailed artist almost has to put in perhaps more lines, more work, has to be a better match for the writing. Calvin and Hobbes, for instance, very simple illustration. I would bet that that's an influence on you.
Oh, yeah.
But so much comes through, right, in such simple drawings. So there must be a balance. Do you feel that, or have you experienced that?
Yeah. I mean, okay. Bill Watterson is a great example of that because his work was all traditional pen and ink with watercolors, and it was about how the brush laid on the paper. Like, you look at Calvin in the story, you know, a lot of the marks were very quickly and gesturally done. Bill Watterson is a creator of different mediums. Like, he's an abstract painter, he's a writer, he works in a variety of different areas. And for him to be like, yes, I'm going to create Calvin and Hobbes, it was really interesting because it felt, well, when we were all with it, it felt very normal. But at the same time, it was like, oh, okay, this is going to be something interesting that is a little bit different. You know, I think it kind of goes in waves when it comes to the style of work and what you're trying to convey. Because let's say, again, Calvin and Hobbes was about a boy and his imaginary friend, but it was also a lot of various serious tropes in that story. But it was broken down to a much younger audience, or even to an audience that, you know, needed time to kind of just digest that information.
Well, and clearly he had chops too, because you look at like all of the Spaceman Spiff, or anytime you draw a dinosaur and you're like, whoa, what is this? He can do so much more, right?
Yeah. I've really enjoyed seeing a lot of what creators do. And now that we've moved into this, in the last 10 years, this whole like webtoon and webcomics hierarchy of stories, because it used to be like you'd go to WordPress or you'd go to other companies to be able to read webcomics. There was no formatting, and now it's all based on how you read comics, based on your iPad or your phone or whatever device you're reading them on. Also changes the format of the story and changes the style of the artwork. So like, say, for example, with current cartoons are based off of previous generation cartoons. So a lot of like what we have right now was based off of like Adventure Time and Regular Show and a bunch of other series. And then before that, they were really kind of based off of like Cat Dog, Hey Arnold, and other series. And so you're seeing a linear progression of simplicity within the artwork, but that's also because they're doing the less is more. Like, they're letting the emotion of the show carry the weight of the story without having to have overly complicated artwork.
Less is more. I like that.
There's also, I think there's like a technological reason behind some of that too. Like, if you watch the old Hanna-Barbera shows, there's something that joins them all together. It has this sort of weird collage-y feeling to it. And I think it's like an extreme economy of frames. Like, they were just doing one drawing and then just like seeing how many ways they could move, you know, have it jiggle and move and like barely change.
Well, they would flip those panels. If Fred's running, you know, from right to left or left to right. And then of course they would repeat the backgrounds on a loop, right?
Yeah, they'd have it on that little system where it's just like a giant painting that's just run through. Yeah, I mean, a lot of technology today allows it to where you can just build a 3D rig, you just put some articulation points, and now you have a character that you can rotate. It just kind of depends on the style. And even that is changing with movies like Across the Spider-Verse or TMNT, where they're really exploring like the more art-centric storytelling, as opposed to here is just general 3D, have fun with it. Mm-hmm. Like what we'd see with other stuff. Like the three biggest movies that came out this last year, or in the last year-ish, was like Puss in Boots, The Last Wish, TMNT, and Across the Spider-Verse. These are three films that are each pushing boundaries in not only the style of artwork, but how they're filming their pieces as well, because they're changing the frame rates depending on what the storytelling is showing. And it's like, that doesn't look right, but I like it.
They really, the latest Ninja Turtle movie, it was Secret of the Ooze?
The Mutant Mayhem.
Mutant Mayhem.
Yeah.
That's right.
I was watching it last night on the plane.
You're watching it?
Yeah,
It's so good.
it's so good.
It's like at any point you could pause it and you get just it's like every frame is its own artwork. The lines are all there. It's so rough and raw kind of feeling.
So, Lucas, question for you. I know you do some teaching. How do you inspire the young people to get totally into why we draw?
Hit me with the hard questions. All right.
I know that's
yeah,
my
I mean,
job.
do they come to you?
That's
do they
my
come
job.
to you like ready-made, the way that you were sort of born to draw and always wanted to draw, or do you get people that are sort of toe dipping and they're like, maybe I want to try this, maybe not, and then they see the light? Or
Yeah. So I started teaching in spring of 2020. That was a good time. I started teaching in person, and then things changed, and then I've been teaching remotely ever since, and that just kind of became the norm. And what I love about it is I get to teach not only people in Anchorage or even Alaska, but I have students that are coming from other areas that are like, hey, I teach illustration, I teach graphic design. Let's talk about like what this looks like. And when I first started teaching, I was teaching the upper division classes, so I was like, okay, I'm going to get the students that are already on their path. They know where they're going. They know what they're doing. That was not the case, and that's the thing with college level classes is like everybody has their own story. They have their own paths that they're going on. So you kind of hope that they're all in the same area. But, since everything I do is all digital, there were students who were like, hey, I've never touched Photoshop before. I don't even know what Procreate is. And so I had to reassess like my levels of like, okay, where's our base level? I thought it was here. It's more down here. And that really kind of put my expectations for what I should be teaching my classes. But a lot of what I do with each of my classes is more introductory, whether it's upper division or lower division. So like my illustration classes, I'm like, okay, let's talk about book publication. Let's talk about greeting card design. Let's talk about advertising illustration. Let's talk about scientific illustration, because these are all areas that most of them have never experienced before. And I want my class to be a lot of firsts for my students. I want them to be like, okay, I've never done scientific illustration before. What does this entail? And get them excited about the idea of what illustration is. Because at the end of the day, like we're all like, okay, we're only as good as the information that we have. We don't know what we don't know until we know. And so if I have a student who's like, hey, I want to get into licensing. How do I get into licensing? Well, let's talk a little bit about that with greeting card illustration. This is how you kind of go into that particular area. You don't have to necessarily have to be the best artist about it, but you just have to be creative. And how do you build those creative skills? It's not, here's a greeting card. You're going to take it to Hallmark now, and they're going to do it for you. But how do you start generating and sketching and building those ideas that you can build your portfolio to that direction? And so I feel like that's what I try to teach more than anything else, is just learning how to ask the right questions about what you want with your art and where you want to take your work. Because I think a lot of times we don't know what to ask because we've never had that opportunity to really be engaged with those questions.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. Asking the right questions is the first place to start. The thing that I always wonder about, that I struggle with, is, does technology get in the way of being creative? We know it's a vehicle, right, to do it, but sometimes I wonder if it would be more organic to just take out a sheet of paper, pick up a graphite pencil, 8 lead, and
Make a mess.
Yeah. And so I as a instructor in the creative world that all of us live in, it's a curious question about where those limits are. And I'm just curious about how you either excel in that or struggle with that, or both.
Oh, I struggle with it for sure. Most of the work I said a while ago, my work is digital, and it's the ease of doing things, but digital can burn you out because you miss the tactile feel, or you get so easily built into the double tap. You got it. Yeah. The
Undo,
double tap of
undo.
erase or
Yeah.
Control Z, because that's the thing I really don't like about digital work is we're so quick to erase the mistakes. We're so quick when it comes to digital work to just say, "Oh, I don't like that." Click, get rid of it.
That's so interesting because you're talking about like you know what has been so valuable to me in the past, which is a sketchbook, and you're looking at kind of the evolution of your idea, and the idea I can't even imagine how many times I've looked back and been like, okay, well, I've evolved over here, and I like most of this, but that idea over here really had merit. Let me kind of pull that form back in here. Let me kind of bring that back into the mix and see what it is. That's a really interesting thought.
Yeah, I require all my students use physical sketchbooks when we're doing projects. If you're sketching out your ideas, if you're just trying to put pen to paper, I think it's still a very important thing to have, because at the end of the day, if you do everything in an iPad or on your computer, you're going to file that way into a folder and you're never going to see it again. Mm-hmm. But if you have a sketchbook, if you have that one thing, heck, you can even use sticky notes. I love sticky notes. Like, that is one of my favorite ways to draw, is just to grab sticky notes and I'll just do, and I'll just put it up on the wall, or I'll just put it on my desk somewhere, and that lives there now. And then I'll eventually take them all down, put them into a folder, and I'll throw them away. Or my niece will get a hold of one and she'll be like, "Mine." I'm like, "All right, that's cool."
Even better.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, now somebody's going to go enjoy it. Or she'll add her own artistic flair to the top of it. And I'm like, hey, collaboration. I like that.
Yeah, we talk a lot about making creativity visible, and how a lot of people in our profession struggle to do that well, to communicate with the broader public what it is we do and how we do it. What's our process? And I think the more things are digitized, the process is digitized, the less visible it becomes. There is none of that record, and especially in a pedagogical setting. I came out of a studio education, and when we were working on trace paper, mostly, there would just be this physical, visual record of everybody's thought process all around you, day and night. And then when it moved to computers, it was just faces with the glow on them. And you'd wait for the end of the semester or the pinup to see what they were all doing. But there was just no community feedback in that environment compared to the old way.
So that's something I've really been working on with my own classes. Like, my classes tend to be anywhere between 5 students to about 30. And the hardest part has always been, how do you build a community online, especially in these smaller areas? How do you give positive, constructive feedback? How do you provide an opportunity to be able to interact with each other as peers and not just faces on a screen? To be fair, though, I'm usually the only face on the screen, so it's kind of frustrating, because I'm like, okay, I've got 15 students and I see 7 names and the rest are weird little memes, because they'll all put like pictures up. I have one student that would change their picture like on a weekly basis, and it was like Elmo on fire going, or doing something silly. One of the things I do require for some of my students or some of my classes is I say, okay, our first project is you have to draw an icon, because I don't want to be staring at your name for the entire semester. I want to be looking at a picture. And they really enjoy, like, it stresses them out, because I'm like, cool, you got to do it in 2 days. But at the same time, I'm also like, now we have pictures of each other. And it doesn't have to be you necessarily, but like a representation of you.
It is an expression of you.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to circle back to something you said earlier that kind of touches on something we've talked about in the past, and the commodification of art.
Okay.
And you talked about what really struck me in what you said about teaching your students was you were looking at real career paths for art. Not just the starving artist, but like legitimate, like avenues where you can take some of your talent and your passion and have a thriving, rewarding career.
Yeah, I mean, creativity can be monetized. It's actually, a lot of people don't really realize that they are creatives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's remarkable when you express that to them. They, wait, what? I'm a creative? Yeah, you're a creative. And I feel like, that narrative needs to be expressed in exactly what we're doing right now, and trying to evolve the visual quality of where creativity needs to be.
Yeah. For me, there's a fine line between like professional creativity and personal creativity. and really trying to find that, what do I enjoy about art? I love doing it as a profession. That's the whole point of me doing it. But I still have to continuously remember, why am I doing this? I'm doing it to tell stories. I'm doing it to have fun. I'm doing it for myself. And I want to make sure that I don't forget that. Because if I get to a point where I'm just burnt out and I'm angry and I'm frustrated because I'm not enjoying what I'm doing anymore, then I've failed myself. So I have to continuously remind myself, like, draw for myself, take time for myself, and make sure that my own mental health when it comes to my professional work versus my personal work is separated. One of the things I love to do, and I'll circle back to what you were saying a little bit, I love to cook. Like, that's my other creative outlet that I really enjoy. And people go, why don't you do recipes? Why don't you do like little creative illustrations that are food-based? And I'm like, no, because they're separate. My learning how to make recipes, my learning how to cook, I do that for me. I do that for my family. I do that for my friends. But that is one of my creative outlets. That is not art. And then when I do art, I have my professional stuff. So I have like my comic books, I have my graphic novels, I've got my fine art, my stickers, my business, stuff like that. But then I have my own sketchbooks that I just do for me. And that's when I'm sitting there and I'm hanging out with my family and I've got, oh, here's a cool idea. I'm like, why does that a potato have legs? It's like, it is what it is. But, it's, art has many different routes that you can go. And I think that the majority of our society, they look at art as like, oh, you're an artist, so you draw. That's the default setting of you're an artist, so you draw. Cool. Let's talk about the 1,000 different routes that you can take with that. And that includes being a graphic designer, that includes being an architect, that includes being a potter, because you have to sketch out your ideas, maybe. Or maybe you're somebody who just goes straight to clay and you just start building. It just kind of depends on the route that you want to go. And with the ease of access of technology to different platforms, social media has done such a great job of expressing different ways other creators are making things. I love TikTok. Excuse me. I'm not good at it because I also don't have time to sit there and be like, let's make a video, because I've been working for 14 hours on these pages for this book, and I'm like, I have to allocate my time appropriately. But I will dang well sit there for 45 minutes going, look at those videos of recipes. That looks fantastic. And but I think it's also a really great educational tool, because you see people who, again, you don't know what you don't know until you know. And you see another artist doing something. Like I do follow architects. I follow like 4 different graphic designers. I follow a florist who makes these beautiful arrangements. And I think that's one of the things with a lot of artists is they pigeonhole themselves, or they feel they have to pigeonhole themselves to go one route, because they're like, well, this is what I want to do. This is what people are doing. I should follow that. But the reality is expose yourself to many different kinds of artwork, because then you can start kind of seeing how they're all interconnected.
Yeah, the framework.
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing I love to do is to, follow a profession. Could be random, like let's just say Porsche, for instance, right?
Just for instance.
And lift
not near
off,
and dear to you at all, John. just drawing names out of a hat.
And lift off the really good performance, right? And lay it down into what we do, right? Creativity. And I find that you can find those frameworks in many different creative professions that you can lift out and set on yours, and it works.
It works, yeah.
It works amazing. Hey, I want to ask you, since we're Alaskans.
Sure.
We're all Alaskans here, right, guys?
Are we?
Yes, we are.
Fantastic.
Tell me about Homer. Tell me about your place.
I've been visiting Homer for over 15 years, longer than that, honestly, and it's just near and dear to my heart. It's this beautiful little community that is both equally art-centric, but also very work-centric, because you do have the fishing community there. You've got, that's the biggest area, of course, but then you've also got hiking communities. You've got construction, like building communities. You've got food. Like the food in Homer is amazing. But then there is the art community again. And the art community is large but small. It's large in the respect that there are many different artists down in Homer, and they all want to share and they all want to create. But it's also small because not a lot of them share. A lot of them are doing it for themselves. A lot of them are just creating for themselves, and they have other potters, they have other sculptors, they have painters, but that you kind of find your own little communities down there. Like my sister-in-law is she went to school for a variety of different things, and one of which was performative dance. And so she helps with the Nutcracker down in Homer every year. And the Nutcracker is like the big event for the entire year in Homer. And it was a lot of fun because my wife was a part of it this year. My niece was a part of it this year. She helped choreograph the majority of the dances. But it's amazing to see how the whole community comes out for various art events. So if it's festivals or if it's music or First Friday events, because there's like 7 different art galleries in Homer. You know, and there are digital artists down there. So that's where I kind of classify myself as I'm like a digital illustrator, digital artist. And there's like 2 comic artists, me and like 1 other person down there. And again, I've been coming back and forth, and I just moved down there last year, but I still kind of keep myself on the outskirts of the community because I'm learning. I'm trying to figure out like where I kind of fit into it. I've been talking to a few other friends who are photographers and graphic designers down there. And we're talking about building our own little community, our own little like art get together, and kind of like what we're doing right now is just talk about experiences. What are people doing? How do we do certain things? Because I think that's the big thing with artists is it's hard for us to find time to get there or find the reason to get together. And so making that more of a reason, I'm excited to see where things are going to go down there. But don't get me wrong, I do miss the Anchorage community too.
Touching on what you said, as a professional artist, who are some of the people that you collaborate with? And, what's an experience you've had where that's gone really well? Anything come to mind?
Yeah. So back in, I want to say it was early 2022, early 2022, late 2021, I was approached by Monica, who was the art director over at Alaska Business Weekly or Monthly. And she called me, and I was just like, how did you get this number? And she goes, oh, you have this random little DeviantArt page that still has your phone number. I'm like, I got to delete that. But she had approached me about doing a cover for the Top 49ers. And she reached out to me because she was like, hey, I've been following your work for a while. I really enjoy it. I love what you're doing. And I think you do a great cover for us. I was like, sure, let's see what we can do. And so we started collaborating, and we started coming up with like serious ideas. Because one of the things I was told, I'll probably get in trouble for this, is apparently her boss was like, why are we hiring a children's book illustrator to do a cover for Alaska Business? And I'm like, oh, okay, let's get serious.
You're a creative. Please.
Don't pigeonhole me like that, right, bro.
Exactly. Come on, motherfucker.
Yeah, so
I'm a creative.
So we came up with a cover, and as we were putting it together, I was like, oh, it'd be really good. Because the cover itself is a bunch of different community businesses. So you have like fishing, you've got like Alaska Native businesses, you've got air travel businesses. So it's all of them kind of listed out in the cover. And I was like, this really would look good if there was just a monster in the middle of it going, ah. and she's like, oh, if you do that, let me know. And so I did. I made a mock cover, and I just kind of put this monster on there. And she's like,
sweet.
Okay, can I borrow this for a moment? So I sent her a copy, and she took it to her boss, and she's like, okay, here's the cover. And he's like, what the? And he got really mad. He's like, no, this is not what we asked for. This is like, how could you let him do this? And yeah, no, they loved it. And
Artists out of control.
I know. They think they can do whatever they want.
Give me agency.
And funny enough, they ended up getting both covers. So they got the original cover, and then they got the spoof cover, and then they used the spoof cover for their actual award ceremony. So you see this monster character all around the conference.
Take a page out of comic books, right?
That's awesome.
The special cover, the collectible. This was a 1 in 25.
Yeah, basically.
We got to snap you.
Sometimes those kind of spoof things are the one-offs when it's something you can peel off in 5-10 minutes, and it just kind of lets you blow off a little bit of steam. I've done that. as a graphic designer before, and you're like, oh, whatever little Photoshop fun or a little one-off kind of thing is like actually really great. And then sometimes it leads to, you know, that becomes the thing that you follow up on.
Yeah,
and
like
is well
the
received.
get to work poster in the bathroom at our office
Yes.
with me. Get to work.
Yes. That's exactly what I was thinking of.
Oh, okay.
It's crazy.
Lucas,
Is there maybe some areas where you find inspiration that you share with your young people and me, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm young at heart. And, you know, who are some of your biggest inspirations? And I know I want to circle around on that because I think it's important that people, I'm big into mentorship. So, and you are a mentor and a creative because you instruct people.
Do the thing.
Yes. And it's super important. And I really appreciate that you're doing it because a lot of people don't want to do that.
right? You talked about like TikTok and self-promotion a little bit. You know, I feel like there are people that are good at one, people that are good at another. How do you balance those worlds? Where do you struggle?
Well, before 2020, I was actually pretty decent at social media, like the balance of social media, but it was mostly just me making art and posting it and then doing little talks, like little paragraphs just saying, hey, what do you guys think? Should I do this? Should I do that? And it really built into engagement. And that was what I was finding. A lot of people were like, we want to be more involved in the process of like, how do you draw? How do you sketch? Can we offer advice on this? Can we add different things? And I was doing okay with it. And then when 2020 came around, I was having job issues to a certain degree. Like I still had my jobs, but the jobs were very nebulous at that time. And so one of the things I really focused on was like, okay, I'm really going to put myself out there. So that's when I got TikTok, and I was really focusing on using Twitter more to engage with other creators, because each social media platform I've learned has kind of its own areas of expertise. Like they're not all the same. They're not all built the same. And you kind of have to treat them a little bit differently. Like if you're an artist and you're posting photos, of course, Tumblr and Instagram are still going to be some of the better areas to go about doing that. If you want to do videos, TikTok. You can have a Snapchat, but it's not an area that I have any expertise in. I do know artists that use it. And the big thing with Facebook, of course, that's where you show artwork to your grandma and be like, hey, look what I did. It's great.
I'm not going to take that personally.
That's kind of where I live, Facebook. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, but okay. On the real talk of what Facebook is its local community. If you want to be serious about that, that is what Facebook is for nowadays, in terms of engagement. I don't get rid of my Facebook because that's where still the majority of the people that followed me from Fairbanks, from Anchorage, from even when I was still doing Emerald City Comic Con and Rose City Comic Con, that's where a lot of them found me. So that is local engagement to a certain Pacific Northwest. But if you're trying to build new engagement, you're not going to find a lot of new engagement there. So that's where you got to go where other people are. And then there's Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it nowadays. For a long time, that was where my world, because I work as a professional comic book illustrator, but I also work in children's publication. So picture books, graphic novels, middle grade, whatever my agent is able to find for me. And I met my agent through Twitter because of when COVID hit, all these communities were in Twitter, but they became that much more tight knit. So I was doing stuff like picture book chat, and I was doing kidlit graphic novel, and I was doing kidlit art postcards. So there were these like weekly or monthly events where you could interact with other creators that were doing the same thing. So Twitter wasn't so much of a thing for me where I was interacting with people and trying to build engagement for, buy my stuff, read my stories, but it was finding other creators that were doing the same thing. It was almost like being in like Reddit channels or on Discord, but in a much more public forum. And again, that's where I found my agent, because I was putting book ideas out there. I was interacting with other people, and I think I was following like 60 different agents at one point, just because I was looking to see like what they were interested in, what they were looking for. Excuse me. And a lot of people were just very much like, yeah, we just want to know who you are as a creator, resonate with what you're doing, what I'm doing. You're going through struggles, I'm going through struggles. So it was a really nice area to just kind of
Yeah.
build.
So, Lucas, I was, thinking about self-promotion,
Yeah.
right? And when you put yourself out there, really put yourself out there, it's risky, it's scary
It is.
in a lot of ways. But I also think that you've been able to do it in a way that has promoted the things that you believe in. And I totally respect that. I think what you're doing is amazing. Maybe you could just, I know you expanded on it a little bit, but maybe tell me what are your big takeaways from what you've done in your career so far?
Big takeaways like through social media or just in general?
Both.
Okay. Social media for me was a great outlet to be able to express myself and get myself out there. And finding that balance of social media versus doing the work. I had an artist friend tell me, like, I can spend time making videos, making TikToks, and doing process videos and showing you my process, or I can do the thing and get you the product that you want. Like, what would you rather have? And I think about that one often because it's like, if you want me to illustrate books for you, I'm more than happy to do that. It's going to take me 1.5 years to do. So I need to focus on that. And I don't mind interjecting with stuff every now and then. But the reality is like, this is where I need to live. This is where you want me to live because you want to be up to date on what I'm doing. And I think with that, it kind of goes in lulls. If you find yourself at a moment where you can start doing a bit more stuff until the next project, go for it. But at the same time, don't sacrifice one versus the other for mental health. You want to make sure that you are well in both areas, not going to burn yourself out. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned with my career is learning to set my own pace and learning how to really treat it like a business and not just I'm going to draw when I feel like I'm going to draw, but setting timeframes. When I was working on Moose, the graphic novel, I had 10 months to work on this book, which is, a decent amount of time for about 150 pages. But at the same time, I was also working a part-time job, and I was also still promoting my work by doing gallery events almost every other month. So I was really busy with trying to figure out like what the balance was. I think I was overall working almost 18 to 20-hour days. And there was weeks where I was sleeping maybe 2 to 4 hours a night. And I was doing power naps in my car. And I'm just trying to find time to do everything. And the thing is, too, is I also come from a background where I've worked everything from landscaping jobs to construction jobs. I worked security for both private and government for a while. Like I've done a little bit of everything. And so my back is not the best. And so my physical health really took a hit on that one when I was working on Moose because, you're sitting at a desk and you're hunched over and, and then 14 hours later, you're like, oh, I should stand up.
Yeah.
And
you get that screen burning too.
Yeah.
Has working with an agent made some of that easier? Or how has it changed your professional side of things working with an agent? Because that's relatively new, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's been within the last couple of years. I've been looking at a few different agencies. So I'm represented by GEM Chambers Black at the Andrea Brown Literary Agency. Honestly, one of the best agencies out there. Yeah, you heard me say that. And it's a whole different world because a lot of publishers won't even talk to you unless you are represented by somebody. So you can have a manuscript and be like, yes, this is the best idea. And but they still want somebody to represent you to be that middle person for all of that information. Social media really changed a lot of that too, because a lot of companies or publishers have also looked at webcomics and other products and been like, that's proof of concept. We're going to go ahead and see if we can publish with that. But we also want you to be represented. We want you to be prepared for this, because even if you're taking a project that's already been built or you're starting fresh, it's going to be a couple of years of your life. So again, a lot of it boils down to planning things accordingly. And I think that's, whether it's been with book publication or doing my own freelance work or doing my own projects, it all boils down to, okay, I have a show at this time or I have an event at this time. I need to make sure that I'm ordering, I'm printing, I'm scheduling things appropriately. And that's stuff they don't teach you in college. They don't teach you how to manage your time wisely. They don't teach you how to manage anything. They teach you how to do a thing. And then you get out and you go, oh, okay, now I have to learn this whole other thing. I actually started as a business major, and then I transitioned into art because I had a lot of people tell me, go take business classes. They're going to be really important. And so I tell that to all my students. I'm like, how many of you want to be freelancers? How many of you want to run your own business? That's fantastic. Have you ever taken an accounting class before? If not, you better go get yourself an accountant. That's what I got. I took a class. I didn't do well. Numbers are not my friend.
That's why I'm in marketing.
Hey, there we go. But it's important to know, again, like if you're working as a freelancer, understanding basic business legalities, understanding social media marketing, understanding how to promote yourself in a way and how to engage yourself in a way. My wife and I like to make fun of me because I have like two personas. I have like my day-to-day persona, and then I have like my business persona. I'm like, hello there, my name is Lucas. It's nice to meet you. I'm a children's book illustrator. Let's talk art. And so it like, whenever I do presentations, whenever I'm kind of going back and forth, like I almost have to kind of move into that person because it just makes it a little bit easier for me.
So looping in back on the storytelling thread, you've indicated that was a prime motivation for you from the beginning with your work, and remains to be. What do you think? Do you think that the big projects like a graphic novel meet that need best, or there's another kind of storytelling that I'm hearing you describe, which is telling the story of you and your work as it unfolds, right? Which is a sort of social media frameworked reality that we all live in now.
Yeah, I mean, we are very much the storytelling generation of things. If you go to a lot of social media, people not necessarily just post like pictures themselves, but they're being a lot more transparent about the hardships of a lot of what they're dealing with, a lot of what they're going through. And I talk about it like in events like this. I'm more than happy to talk about it. Social media is not one of those areas where I feel comfortable posting something like that to the world all the time. But yeah, there's different types of storytelling for sure. Like I do definitely feel very comfortable in graphic novels and picture books because it's a world that I can help build and really understand. But I also do find people that are really engaged in, oh, you did that, you did this. Can you tell me more about it? And so having one-on-ones or having group discussions about it I have no problem telling about how I failed with projects or I made bad decisions in not camera settings. And but
do you have like a great story that is inside that you are wanting to get out to the world? Is there something just like simmering?
I don't know.
Good question.
That is a hard. Stop with the hard questions. No,
It's our job.
That's good. I appreciate it.
You were drawing pictures of your dog, right?
He's got like 3 stories of his own right there.
and you were sketching them out for a future story at one point. First of all, what's the name of the dog?
His name is Dax, D-A-X.
Dax, love it.
Yeah. But like every good dog owner, he's got 12 other names. So I usually call him like Daximus Aurelius, leader of the 7 kennels.
Yes.
My wife, like we call him Daxa Hiccup Spyro. He's got like a whole list of other names because we weren't sure what we were going to settle on. But
most of them good,
right?
It sounds
Exactly.
like.
You
Okay.
can have fun with it. So
okay,
yeah,
but he's starred in a few of your creator-led projects.
I had a short comic I did for 24-hour Comic Day a few years ago called Dog by Day, Hunter by Night. But it was about the story of our dog, and we were living in our house up in Fairbanks, and it was my wife and I's anniversary, and I was like, crap, I forgot a gift for him or for her, and I was just like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and so I went to bed like stressing out, and my dog was like, I got you. And so he opens up this secret compartment behind our couch with like a snow machine and then a bunch of tools. And he just I don't know where I was going with this. And he heads over to like the local like knockoff Walmart store that's being run by zombies. And the general manager is a vampire. And so he's trying to like buy a necklace for me, but they're trying to fight him. And so he's like fighting. It was a whole thing. It was great. And So
I love the idea that you get to this skill level and you're like, I don't know what I'm going to get my wife. Here it is, Christmas Eve. Let me break out the sketch pad again. And she's like, "Oh, thanks, honey.
So
I'll add this to the fridge."
I usually limit myself every 5 years on that one. Actually, when we first got married, we had literally like $90 to our name, and so I did this cute little illustration of our dog peeing a giant heart in the snow behind our house, and she was just like, "I really love this."
Chicks dig art.
Yeah, they do.
chicks art.
But the one you're talking about was my Inktober story from a while back. That was where my dog was an adventurer, and so Inktober came around, and there was a bunch of prompts, and so each prompt related to my dog as an adventure with the neckerchief and the utility belt, and he's anthropomorphic, so he's like going on an adventure and meeting all these other creatures, and so each was a single illustration that represented the word that was taking place, and I love those, like not necessarily Inktober in general, but like all the challenges, because sometimes it's really hard to come up with ideas.
And is that like a drawing a day for the month of October?
Yeah. So since then, there's been a whole bunch of others that have spawned. There's one that I follow called Drawloween, and so they're usually like themed, punny story ideas. And so I try to do that one. And my agency this year decided that it would be a good idea to do their own drawing challenge, and they wanted to like promote that. So I was kind of mixing between the two when I have time now. But back then I used to do them a lot more.
So, Lucas, we are definitely going to want you to share some of that for this, because it's a media cast, not a podcast.
Okay.
So it's all filmed, and I want to kind of lace in some of your work to illustrate what we're talking about today.
Sure.
And we'll make sure that we add the links too on our pod notes as well, so
Oh, of
people
course.
can follow
Yeah,
up
of
with
course.
Fantastic.
Yeah, of course.
Love it.
But I do want to circle back to what Garrett said. What is... Tell me two things.
Okay.
Only two.
Two. Yeah. I'll try to keep it to two. We'll see what happens.
Because I have them on my tip of my tongue for me. The worst things that you did as a business owner or an artist or a creative, and the best thing you've done.
You already told us about that DeviantArt page.
Yeah, that was pretty good, bad. Yeah. Don't put your phone number out there if you're trying to get big. That's a big thing. Yeah, be careful how you promote yourself, because then you start getting some real weird stories. You start getting some real weird clients that try to reach out to you. But this was back in the DeviantArt days, back in the early to mid 2000s, where it was like, yeah, just throw everything out there. Don't do that.
Success stories, something that you really, I made it, or, the thing that you really can put a pin in, like, this is me.
All right. Well, I'm a huge fan of the Ninja Turtles. Like, that was a big inspiration in my childhood.
Wait a minute. Are we talking about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
By this point, they're probably 55, but...
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we're on the same page.
The middle-aged
middle-aged.
mutant Ninja Turtles,
Yeah.
yes.
Middle-aged, semi-retired. Sometimes ninja, sometimes, golfers. But no. So I have a friend who works on the comic series, and back in, I want to say it was like 2014, 2015, I just got a random hair. I was like, I'm going to redesign the Turtles in my own style, because it's kind of fun to see the interpretation of characters that you really enjoy and how you would go about creating them. And so I put them up, and my friend was like, wow, these are really good. Do you mind if I show them to my editor? I was like, sure, why not? I don't care. I mean, I don't ever expect anything to happen from something like that.
I mean, I'm secretly hoping something.
Oh,
will happen,
100%. I want all the success. And that's okay. So quick side tangent. That's actually one of the things that, like, I want to see my friends succeed. I want to see people who I don't even know who are artists succeed, because the more we succeed, the more we grow, the more that we're able to get art out into the world. I think it's important. Okay, back to Turtles. So she gave my work to her editor, and her editor was like, hey, does he want to do a comic cover for Ninja Turtles? I was like, I mean, if you're going to let me, why not?
Let you.
Let me, please.
Fuck yeah.
How about that? That was a tough negotiation, right?
Basically,
You're like, how much do I need to pay you to do the comic cover?
I was like, so you need my organ donor card, right? And so we did a quick test to make sure that I could figure out like the color palettes and get everything ready, and then I submitted a bunch of covers, and and I was a little overexcited because I'd messaged the guy like every couple weeks, like after I submitted, I was like, all right, so when's it coming out? When's it coming out? Do I get my copies yet? When's it coming out? I think by the time we were done, he was just like, don't ever contact this person ever again. But I remember when Bosco's actually had copies in there.
That's super cool, man.
I was like, dude, I got Ninja Turtles. I'm in a comic shop. Like, this was like dream come true.
Yeah.
This little moment.
That's
and
awesome.
Yeah, I still have my copies, and I still get people, like I had somebody bring a copy to like the last Comic-Con I did back in 2019. They were just like, look what I got. And I'm like, how? How did you get that? I don't even know how many copies they made, but yeah.
So, couple things to wrap up. I think we're in wrap up mode.
Okay.
Another two things. Sorry.
Did we cover the last two things? Are we good with that?
Yeah, I think we did.
A book or a graphic novel that you recommend for people who want to really understand what we do, creativity. Second question, who do you think we should be engaging with in this format for Why We Draw? Those are the two questions.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to do the second question first.
Okay.
Because I'm going to be sitting here thinking the entire time, like, crap, I'm going to get the wrong book. So there is a guy that, if you're not familiar with him, we like to call him he goes by a couple names. Like, he's like the king of Anchorage or the dad of Anchorage. But his name is Lee Post.
The Jackal. Oh, Lee.
Yeah.
I know Lee. I
Yeah,
went to school with Lee.
everybody knows Lee. That's the thing. Is Lee is this guy that just if you say his name, there's always gonna be one person in the room who goes, "Oh yeah, I know him. Yeah, he's a great guy. He's fun." I mean, he didn't say the second part, but is he a good guy?
He's all right.
He's all right.
No, but he is also
Jesus.
a mentor. He is also a helper. He is somebody that likes to do storytelling with his work. He likes to engage with people. One of my favorite things that he does is in the summers, mostly he will travel around the state and he will do workshops at the various libraries and schools. Like he was down in Homer this summer and he was giving a workshop at the Homer Library. He's done countless over at the Lusac Library. You know, he's somebody that is very much engaged with his community and somebody that really wants to be a helper to everybody else. So he is definitely somebody that I would 10 out of 10 just be like, yes, he is.
You know what I would say about Lee? Similar to you, and maybe you have some insight on this. But if I see a piece of your work, I know it's you. And I think it's very hard to cultivate a distinctive style. And I feel like Lee Post is very similar as well. You see his and you're like, I recognize that line work.
Yep.
Is that something you actively worked on, something that evolved over time?
Oh, the style?
Yeah. I think a lot of
Come back
artists
to your
really
question.
struggle to,
That's fine.
you know, it takes a
drifting.
while because I think a lot of artists or people I've talked to, they spent a lot of their early career kind of aping other people.
Oh, yeah.
Or a summary of their influences, right? And then a style emerges over time.
Oh, yeah. No, there's definitely a few creators that I definitely mimic their style a lot. Scotty Young being one of them for a long time because, again, I really wanted to understand his expressiveness, his movement, things like that. I think there's a point that you just kind of let go of everybody, all your influences. Like you've taken what you've needed from them. You've understood what's there. And you start to kind of go, okay, I like this. I like that. And you have to give yourself the permission to like it because we get to a point with our work when we're learning other people's work. Like one of my favorite artists is from when I was a kid was Joe Madureira. And it was because of, was because he was doing the run of the X-Men. But it was very much like the introduction of like the Western anime style. So it was still very much very big, blocky muscle groups, but very expressive characters and a lot of action. And now you see a lot of creators that are, you know, subsequently 10, 15 years after that, you were seeing a lot of creators that were doing his work. And then we started moving into more simplified frames. So it kind of goes in waves of what people are interested in. But with me, like I was really heavily Scotty Young inspired with my work up until probably 2013, 2014. And I was really kind of moving into other avenues. I was getting more into kids' graphic novels, and I was seeing a whole bunch of other stuff. And I don't know, I just kind of reached a point where my brain was just like, this is what you are now. And so one of the things I actually do with my students every semester is I show them a piece from 10 years ago, 10 years ago. And I show them a piece from within the last couple of years, and they're the exact same piece, because I like to revisit previous pieces just to see if I can do it better, or what would I change about it. And I'm like, here's the thing, what I was influenced by at that time is completely different than what I'm influenced by now, or what I was influenced by then has moved into what I'm influenced by now. And it's okay to change. It's okay to evolve and to let things go. But you have to give yourself permission to say, I like this and I don't like this, so I'm going to change it. And once you do that, I think that's when style really starts to come into play.
I really like that wisdom.
Yeah.
Very spot on for me.
Nobody's fully formed out of the gate.
No, I'm very wisdomous. Thank you. I appreciate that. No, it's, my wife and I actually were having a conversation recently about masters, the masters of their work. And I don't think anybody really is a master. I think we're just continuously growing. We're continuously evolving. But we always, like the work that we see from that person at that particular time, like, oh, they're a master. They know their things. And if you reach a point where you're the master and you're done learning, are you really a master, or are you just stuck where you're at?
Yeah.
I think the true masters are the ones that just keep learning and growing and failing. And that's where that's the big thing is you need to fail to be better.
So Garrett and I have this ongoing conversation about reaching mastery. I'm not there yet. I'm close in my world about being an architect and creative, but there is a lot of things left. And this discussion that we're having,
a lot of levels to
yeah,
this, right?
and this discussion tonight just influences me into like, you're not mastery, brother. You need to work harder at understanding creativity, how to do it well, how to share it, and harness its feeling, because it's an amazing opportunity that we have as creatives to just see that kind of power come out of what we do.
There's usually like one point a year where I get stressed out because maybe I had a bad day, or, I'm talking to my accountant and I'm just like, oh, I goofed up. No, not really. A little bit really. But I get to a point where all the negative feelings really kind of push me down. I'm like, do I really want to do this anymore? Do I still want to be an artist? Do I want to be a creative? And I have to continuously remember the positive points, the things that really make me want to do this. And like, just being able to talk tonight really kind of helps to reaffirm a lot of that, because, we all reach that point in our careers. I don't care who you are, if you never acknowledge it, but there are points where we get stressed out and we're like, am I ready to be done? Am I ready to move on? Am I ready to try something different? And there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel that this is not an area that you want to continue on, but you want to kind of sidestep into something else, do what's best for you overall. There we go. But at the same time, if it's something you truly enjoy and love, you got to remember the positive points. You got to remember those moments where, what makes these days worth it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can't conclude any better. Mic drop.
boom.
Lucas, where can we find you if people want to, see more of what you do or follow your work?
Oh, nobody can find me anymore. I'm out in the middle of the woods. That's
right.
No, so I do have social media. So you can find me on all the platforms I mentioned earlier, from Twitter to TikTok to Instagram. I do have my own website. It's currently under construction because I'm, as I had mentioned earlier, I'm trying to figure out like who Lucas Elliott is in terms of how I showcase myself. And so I'm actually trying to redefine how my website is. I'm actually working on getting it to be more story driven. Hey, look at that.
Mm-hmm.
So
full circle.
Yeah, right. But yeah, you can just if you just type in Lucas Elliott Art, 2 L's, 2 T's, make sure that that's the thing. That's super important. You'll find me.
Great. Hey, I just want to say thank you for your time, and man, it's been really inspirational listening to the conversation.
Yeah.
And this is the purpose of Why We Draw.
Looking forward to seeing what you do next, man.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Lucas.
Why We Draw is a production of MCG Explore Design, located in beautiful downtown Anchorage, Alaska. Subscribe to Why We Draw on your favorite podcast platform so that you don't miss an episode. You can watch Why We Draw on Spotify and YouTube, and send us your comments on future episodes at exploredesign.com/whywedraw. Thanks for listening.